Okay, hi class, this is Mr. Tan, and today we're doing what subject? Management operations. Good. Okay, and we're doing P4. So what does P4 say?
Explain the key approaches to operations management and the role the leaders and managers play.
Good. So we know that the key word here is to explain, and explain means to go into more detail. So knowing that and looking at the question, what is the first thing in this question do you think we could answer and start talking about in this question? Or should be talking about?
By breaking it down, first we need to explain what's management
Good.
operations.
What is first manager's operations? So let's look at that first. What is management operations? Now, when we're looking at management operations, we're saying to ourselves, with a business, what are all the inputs coming in? The inputs being the resources, the staff, the finances, and all the materials that you need in order to make the goods. And then the inputs come into the business, and then within the business, these inputs are transformed into the transformation process. In the transformation process, in terms of how the company conducts their processes, their practices, in terms of how they get, in example for Tesco's, the food out. So what process, where does it go? Warehouse or distribution centres, supply centres, then it goes to distribution centres, then it goes to the stores, it goes to the warehouse of those stores, different types of stores, the Tesco Express, the Metro, the Tesco's Direct, and so on and so forth, and Tesco Superstores. And then how does it get to the output? The output being, how does it get to the end consumer? So we're talking about this process of inputs, transformation process, and outputs. And around the outside, we're talking about environmental factors like pestel, political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. That could affect Tesco's in terms of what's happening. And we've seen many things that are affecting Tesco's in terms of political factors, Brexit, and how that has affected cost of goods coming from abroad into the UK in terms of Tesco's becoming more expensive. We've seen more competition from Lidl and Aldi, where in 2015 Tesco's had their first pre-tax loss of 6.4 billion. Subsequent to that, Tesco's had to react, and they reacted by buying Booker's, which also had Londis and Budgens. That is an open system. There are closed systems whereby the outside environmental factors do not affect what's happening in the business organisation. But in the case for Tesco's, I would say that Tesco's is an open system and not a closed system. An open system that's actually being affected by what they do and how they do things, by the outside environment affecting them. Okay? So the first thing I think to do is to talk about, quite rightly as Peter mentioned, the different operation systems. And then the question goes on and talks about different approaches to operation systems. And there are many different approaches. But what two approaches have we been looking at?
TQM, the total quality management, and continuous improvement.
Good. So we've been looking at TQM, total quality management, and we've also been looking at continuous improvement. Excellent. So we're going to take one at a time, and then once we're doing TQM, what are we also going to do? Because the question says the role
of a
manager and a leader. So we're going to take TQM, and then we're going to see the role of a manager in TQM, and then we're going to take continuous improvement and see the role of a leader in continuous improvement. Okay, in relation to the case study that we're using in this example, which is Tesco's. So if we look at TQM, so the first thing I would say is that since we're looking at one approach to TQM, what would you say that TQM is?
It has very much similarities with continuous improvement.
Yes.
However, this is more market orientated and
Yes.
it's also orientated and takes into consideration the external factors.
Yes.
Internal factors.
So TQM is defined as a philosophy, it's a way of thinking that tries to unite all the different organizational functions in terms of marketing, HR, finance, R&D, warehousing, and all the different areas of the organization, and it tries to integrate them in terms of their culture and philosophy, in terms of doing the most efficient things in an efficient way and the best way, at the right time, with the right product, satisfying consumers with an aim of meeting company objectives. I personally think this is very similar to a marketing-orientated approach, where you could see marketing as a mutually satisfying exchange. Some authors say that marketing is a mutually satisfying exchange at a profit. I would go on to add that marketing is a mutually satisfying exchange at a profit in the long term. In other words, you want to be in business in the long term, and you want to have maximum profit in relation to your competitors. And the way to have maximum profit is to use TQM, is to use continuous improvement. It's the same philosophy. And TQM is about maximizing yourself, being the most efficient and the most effective way of doing things in your business in terms of your processes and your practices. It's so important if you have your own business. So many businesses out there don't do this at the operational level. And they don't do it so they're not saving costs. We've seen the likes of Marks and Spencer's in terms of being inefficient, having to close 60 stores, and we don't even know what's going to happen with Marks and Spencer's. It is make or break time for Marks and Spencer's. Okay? But they're very inefficient in terms of the way they do things. And even meeting customers' needs. Do they have the right clothes? Anyone here shopping Marks and Spencer's for clothes? No? Didn't think so. So, again, who is their target market? What clothes have they got? They previously had PO4, which targeted the younger type fashion clientele, but now that's gone by the wayside, and you've got other competitors coming into the marketplace, selling their goods online, like boohoo.com, and so on and so forth. So when we look at total quality management, we can see that this can be applied. So we're looking at total quality management principles and the type of tools they use. Now, when we're talking about some of the tools include, some of these tools come under various areas, come under 3 different areas. They come under tools for generating ideas, tools for organizing data, and tools for identifying problems. So if we look at tools for generating ideas, these include check sheets, scatter diagrams, and cause and effect. So we can see that if we took 1 or 2 of these, tools for recording data, how many defects for one product, for a product A, B, and C, how many defects by hour have we had? And again, monitoring all the defects, because defects will cost the company money. And when you're recording this, you can see what products are having defects and how many by what hour. Then you could probably link it back to staff that was working between that hour and so on and so forth, in terms of Tesco's, in terms of problems or defects. So again, we can then try and look at this information and say, well, okay, here's the problem with this product A, B, and C. Maybe we link it to this staff or this staff who was working during that time period. What can we do? Do the staff need more training? Do they need additional help? Do they need more product knowledge? What exactly needs to happen in order to reduce the defects? Because defects cost the company money. If you're costing the company money, that means you're making less profit. If you're making less profit, then you have less money to reinvest back into customer satisfaction, which do not meet the objectives of the organization. Yeah? If we look at a scatter diagram in terms of how one variable is affecting another, in terms of productivity and people being absent. You might be absent working a specific area, but then the productivity might come down, even though there is someone covering for you. The productivity might go down because that person may not be as knowledgeable or as skillful in that area. He may not know what you know. So again, using this tool, you can see that even though someone's been off sick, but the productivity's gone down, even though they're being covered, well, what do you do? What actions do you take? What steps do you take? These tools allow you to identify ideas for reducing defects and so on and so forth. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah. So if we look at the second area is the data collection, we can see that you've got data collection in terms of flowcharts. If we look at a flowchart, the flowchart tells us the process a specific task or function takes. So in terms of a customer placing an order for Tesco's Direct and having it delivered, what is the process that order takes? And then identifying the process, identifying any bottlenecks or things which are holding up the process, and then saying to ourselves, how can we improve upon this process? If we've seen in the case of McDonald's has said, hang on a minute, one person serving us and then collecting the food takes too long. So they changed their process. So now, going to McDonald's, you can place your order on an electronic screen. Also, you can go to the cashier, to the staff at the member till, they will take your order, but then they don't give you your order. Then you wait on a production screen, and then your order will come up by a number. Do you understand? And the good thing is they reduce the defects there, simply because they only cook your order when you place it. They're not cooking your order, they're not placing all the food in the bin. If they place all the food in their production bin, then you could have room for defects, because if there's no one coming to buy it, you've got to get rid of the food after a certain time, because you can only allow the food to be sitting there for X period of time. Do you understand? So now you're reducing your defects. So you're reducing waste. So you're making the company more profitable by using a flow chart and changing the flow chart, changing the process it takes to make it more efficient, therefore reducing the defects. Okay? If we look at problem tools, we can see problem tools in terms of a histogram using standard deviation. You might have the average, let's say the average a staff takes to fill shelves in one section is 1 hour. But then if you might have a standard deviation, because different